So let's talk about the career a little bit, because what some folks may just be sort of discovering you and your music, but you're not at all an up and comer. You've been around a while. Looking back on those early days of getting the publishing deal and the album, and have things turned out the way you thought they would, or is Here and Now just very different from what you thought you might be doing 30 years after you started out?
Uh, this business kind of has a way of like, I think pointing you, it has its own notions on what you, how you fall in. And it's not too different than maybe how I somehow imagined it as a 20 something year old. But, I don't know. I mean, we kind of all start out, uh, most of us start out, if we have, maybe if we're just wired as songwriters, we just want to write, we just want to create, and I definitely had that in me. But I also loved playing, I loved performing, and particularly with the band, I just loved the almost, really kind of romanticized just the highway and being out there with the guys, and conquering America one honky tonk, kind of conquering America one honky tonk at a time, you know, and I loved the notion of that, and that's really what drove me to want to create. And it all kind of started from going to see shows as a kid growing up in Texas, and the first couple of shows I saw were stuff like Willie Nelson on New Year's Eve in Houston, Texas, and I'd walk out of that building like literally wanting to, imagining myself as a 10-year-old or 12-year-old, like, okay, when I turn the corner to this megaplex concert hall, after I turn this corner, I'm gonna be Willie Nelson. Like, I would just imagine it to myself, like, and like what that would feel like, and like, so I definitely had that in me too. And so perhaps it's not the way things unfolded, after 25 plus years or whatever it's been, like 30, I don't even know. I don't feel like it's been that long, but
Mm.
maybe it's not too different. Maybe it's just exactly as it should have been, because I'm both a recording artist and a songwriter, and have had a foot in both worlds for a couple of decades. And it's a cool place to be. It is. I just recently put out a new record, my fifth studio album. Um, that I'm really, really excited about. Probably as excited or more excited than anything that I've ever done, in the studio. And part of that reason for that is that, my collaboration with Pete Anderson, who is a multi-platinum producer and guitar player of his own, in his own right. He's his own chapter in American music history, in my book, an unsung hero, but also very lauded, by those in the know. Pete's been a part of, all kinds of people's careers. Everybody from Lucinda Williams, who's the queen of of Americana music. She's really kind of right up there with Emmylou Harris, in terms of that, and then everybody from Jackson Brown, of California cool country rock, fame, Running on Empty and all that stuff. Like, he's been a part of Jackson Brown's career. He's produced Jackson Brown. He's of course, the Dwight Yoakam stuff early, the first, I don't know what, 15 years of his career, and was his producer and guitar player, and wrote all that stuff. It was, that sonically it was, I give large credit to Pete Anderson for that, for the vision of those records. And then he's worked with classics like Roy Orbison and Buck Owens, so guys that were my heroes, like, and I grew up hearing those records as a kid. They were my parents' records, and so I'm real excited about the recording artist side of it right now. And I'm still, of course, I wrote all the songs, and just, I guess we cut one outside song, but I love writing too. And I'm so, to answer your question, long-winded. Um, yeah, it's kind of turned out probably the way it should have, but I'm not sure I had it entirely mapped out.
And that happens. I mean, do we ever have anything mapped out? And kind
Yeah.
of along those same lines, and maybe you already provided somewhat of the answer to this question, but you had that top 10 hit at the beginning of your recording career. And there's always been a lot of space though in between your albums. So,
Yeah.
was there a reason you didn't shift into that country music industry machine where you're, cranking out 2 to 3 records a year to stay in the charts?
Um, well, I'm of the belief if you're cranking out 3 records a year, you're putting out some crap. So I
I'm
don't
not
give a
mad at
crap.
you for saying that.
I don't care who you are. I don't, and I'll tell anybody that. I'm sorry, but maybe I'm not right about that. Maybe you're finding a bunch of great songs, but if you're writing them all yourself, which I tend to gravitate towards the artists that have at least a pretty fair hand in creating their own material, because I think that's what gives you your sound and your style and puts your imprint on it.
For
I'm
sure.
not saying you got to write everything yourself. I'm just saying you should be in the room,
Hmm.
and contributing. And man, it's just a tall task to be putting out 2 or 3 records a year consistently. So I've had space between mine for sure. And there was a period there where I probably went 10 years or something
Yeah.
between making a record. And that's when I was really in the songwriting game, and multiple publishing companies, and writing a bunch of hits for other artists. And I don't regret that. That was a time period when I had 2 kids, I was raising, with my then wife, and it was just a different time period in our lives, and in my life. And I still go out and play the occasional show. Some of them really interesting, but like I'd get an offer to go play a soccer stadium in Brazil or the Red Cross Ball in Switzerland, and Shania Twain's just so turns out she's on the front row as like the queen hostess of the night or whatever, and like cool stuff, but like I didn't play a lot of dates in the States. There wasn't a lot of stuff coming my way. I didn't have any records out, I had nothing to promote. And so the stuff I was getting was just incoming stuff from other parts of the world. And that was super cool. I mean, I loved it, and I loved writing the songs and being a part of, as a songwriter, being a part of other people's careers. Sarah Evans, Garth Brooks, George Jones is at the top of the list, but others too. The Randy Rogers Band, some Texas guys, Eli Young Band. Wrote some pretty signature songs for those guys in their careers, and that's a real honor. It does take you away out of the public eye in a sense.
Yeah.
And in some ways you don't get that time back. So like it's always kind of an uphill like effort when you do start putting your own records out again. I didn't really realize that end of it, but it's hard to kind of get that momentum back that you had when you were part of a major label on Capitol Records, the whole machine behind you. Lipstick Promises, yeah, that was a top 10 hit, and it was a number one video. And but we had several like top 40 billboards, top 30, top 25, whatever. Teardrops, Every Time She Passes By, a song called Kisses Don't Lie. We were on the radio for, like, I don't know, several years running. Something was at least on the chart, and nothing to the extent of Lipstick Promises, which was a song that really made an imprint, in the way that a lot of number ones make imprints,
Mm.
perhaps even more, because it was a long ride up the chart, and then it hung around for a long time, and then it was a recurrent for forever on the Billboard charts. So a lot of mileage from that song. But yeah, even so, we had other songs on the radio for consistently for several years. So yeah, you never really get that going again unless a few people do, but it's hard, like, I mean, Kenny Chesney went through like, just not to compare myself to that at all, but like he came out a little before me, a couple years before me, and country was hot.
Mm.
The town had a lot of money in it at the time, Garth money, and that whole neo-traditional movement that was
Yeah.
going on. Really, times were good, and so labels and publishing companies were willing to take more bets. They had deeper pockets at the blackjack table, so to speak. So that is not true today. But pointing back to Kenny Chesney, my point about that was that guy went through like 4 record labels, 4 failed deals or 3 failed deals, and then until he finally like hit. That's a lot of chances. That's a lot of at bats. Most
Yeah.
people don't get 4 at bats.
Yeah.
They're lucky to get 1 at bat. So, I mean, I had that time, and that's cool. And then it became, you know, George the songwriter, and had some good success with that. And now it's George the independent recording artist that tours as much as possible, does what makes sense, and we have a lot of fun out there, and it's a cool little band of brothers out there on the road.
Very nice. What's the balance like in writing songs for you versus writing songs for other people? Is there an intention in writing for someone else, or is it I'm writing my songs and hopefully other people like them?
It's that, yeah. I mean, if I don't really like the direction of a song or a song idea, I mean, it might get written that day. I'm with somebody else, assumedly, because otherwise I just don't even start the idea, right? Because I'm not crazy about it. We might wind up writing it, um, and it might wind up surprising you, like surprising me, like. But more often than not, I'm like, I would rather kick around ideas for another 2 or 3 hours to find one everybody loves, or
Yeah.
however many people are in the room, me and some other co-writer, or me and 2 other co-writers, or whatever. I just want everybody to be like, oh hell yeah, this is special, because I mean, there's a old adage that I stick by, and I'm sure I didn't come up with it, but I've been saying it so long now that I don't know where it came from, but I still can't take credit for it. But it's like, you can't polish a turd, and the point of that is, like, for me, it's not a numbers game. For some guys approach writing like, and there's like, get your name on as many songs as you can. I don't really like that. I like to really be passionate about what I put my name on, and what I finish. And the you can't polish a turd um, mantra is that, for me, it's like, it's much easier to write a good song when you start with a great idea. If you start with a turd, it's real hard to polish that sucker up and make it a great song. I mean, you might make it passable, maybe, but it's just a struggle. It's going to be hard to make it unique. It's going to be, maybe it's an overused, trite expression, or whatever the case is, whatever makes it not stand out, not that original, not that interesting, whatever. It's hard to write a great song around that. It's
Yeah.
much more difficult, and
You
it's
won't
not
say it.
impossible. It's not impossible, but
You
it's.
won't say it, but I will. What you're talking about are Kenny Chesney songs.
I mean, we could come up with a couple other names too,
That's
but
true.
Oh,
Sorry.
the
I'm
list is
just.
the list is long, my
yeah.
friends.
I'm just.
And it's getting longer by the day. It's
Ugh,
it's 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 yeah. I
you
mean,
ain't
honestly,
lying.
I don't listen to country music anymore. I don't. Like, not today's. I mean, I'm not interested, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I mean, part of the reason for this show is we're not interested in country music radio. What the acceptable mainstream stuff.
Yeah, that's
You
what I'm
know,
referring to.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're very much focused on roots, Americana, bluegrass.
Oh yeah,
Just
for sure. I knew
uh,
that coming in.
Good,
absolutely,
good. Then
absolutely.
the brand and the branding is working. And then so
Absolutely.
listening to you talk about, Nashville and your songwriting, I'm hearing a lot of pride and passion coming out. So
For
hopefully that
sure.
translates for you into, financial sustainability. So, how does one make a living as a songwriter? How do you put together an income that sustains you? We're fans, right? Like, we have day jobs outside of the music world, so we're really not experts in this field. But what does it take to survive financially as a songwriter in Nashville?
Um, you know, it's changed over time, for sure. I don't want to get too macroeconomic about it, my answer, but I mean, there's fewer publishing deals, I believe, these days than there were, let's say, back. I mean, I've probably been signed to almost every major publishing deal, publishing company in town at this juncture, and pretty sure none of them want me back. Um, and that's fine because a publishing deal is typically a bad banking deal is what it is. Like if you believe in yourself, and you can sustain yourself without having a publishing deal, you might be better off not having one, and then hoping something becomes of one of or more of your songs, whether it's you recording it or someone else recording it, because then you own the publishing, which you can also turn around and sell a catalog of songs to companies that do that. I mean, there's companies that are in that game, if you want to at some point later, which I've done. I have done that, and then taken that money and reinvested it, like in assets that don't depreciate over time, which songs do. So typically, that's not a good investment strategy, is to invest in a depreciating asset, right? But like, without getting too far down that road, like I think the way to sustain yourself is to go play shows, play your new songs in front of live audiences for whatever amount you can get for it. If it's just you and a guitar, it doesn't really cost you anything much to be out there. And maybe it's around town. That's what I did. I played in a pool hall where they served beer by the quart, and I mean, it was thick as true cigarette smoke was in there. Like, I mean, you could still smoke indoors. So,
Yeah.
and everybody did, including me. And and they literally served beer by the quart, and it was a blast. I'd walk out of there like a stripper. I had like $300 or $400 in ones rolled up in my pocket, because that's what I got paid. I got paid $1 at the door, and I did that once or twice a week, and that sustained me. But also I didn't have any debt. I mean, that's another critical component. Don't live beyond your means.
Yeah.
So, you know,
And that
it helped.
transcends songwriting. I mean, that's just good basic advice.
Yeah, it is. But nobody, it's shocking how few people would adhere to that, but like what you want and what you need are two different things. So you can look at the business the same way. How bad do you want this business? Because to really get there, you might have to sacrifice purchasing power for a while. Like, you don't really need to go shopping on Amazon right now. You don't need that stuff. Like, just live basically, live simply, and until you don't have to, and that might be a few years, like, or there might be a clock in your head and your heart telling you, like, man, after 4 or 5 years, if it didn't get anywhere, it's like, and you get tired of doing it, get tired of trying and not seeing anything coming back, then maybe it's time to switch gears and do something else. Like, there is no blueprint, except
Yeah.
for our own internal compass in the end. For me, I was beating around town playing these little pool halls and bars for 3, 4 years before things started to sort of take place, and I don't know, had it gone, I don't know what would have happened if it would have taken another couple of years. I might have run out of patience. It's
Mm.
very possible. I can't really say, because fortunately I didn't have to I didn't have to make that call.
Yeah.
But everybody's clock is different, and I would just say try to um, you know, live reasonably, live close to the bone, or have a day job, and still, even if you have a day job, get out and play your songs that you're writing, because that'll tell you more than anything about whether you're on the right track. And it'll also improve, I think it'll improve obviously your chops live,
Yeah.
if that's a part of your design. Um, you can't help but improve by getting out there and doing it, whether you're getting paid or not, but try to get paid. And even if it's $50, $100, or whatever, like, it'll improve your chops, but it'll also show you what's working as of the material you've written. And yes, you'll probably have to play some cover songs. Sorry, everybody's done it. But more and more you can slide in your own material, and as you come up with it, and um, you know, it'll tell you when you play those songs of yours that are new. A lot of times I'd come in and play a song that I'd written that day, and I'd literally have the legal pad right in front of me because I couldn't remember the second verse yet or whatever, and or I'd have somebody hold it up for me, crowd participation there. So like it'll tell you what's working for you, like is this song getting a response from the crowd, or not. So it really kind of hones your songwriting skills as well as your live chops,